3 spine-chilling security guard encounters, terrifying secrets revealed from the haunted shadows. Tom stared at the flickering security lights in Oakwood Mall, and he couldn't shake the chill crawling down his spine. Crumbling stores surrounded him like tombstones. Memories of laughter and chatter echoed faintly through the empty halls. It felt wrong to intrude on a place that once thrived. The shadows danced, flickering just out of reach, whispering doubts that gnawed at his sanity. He extended his flashlight into the darkness, but it only revealed more emptiness. Every night, the sounds echoed a child's laughter, soft and sweet, slicing through the silence. It twisted his stomach into knots. For a brief moment, he could picture his daughters' faces, their giggles ringing in his ears. Were they safe at home, or was something more sinister lurking in the corners of his mind? His instincts churned with a low hum of paranoia. It was more than exhaustion, it felt alive. As he rounded the corner by the abandoned food court, he stopped. There it was again, a faint whisper, a rustle followed by giggles that seemed to melt into the cracked walls. The walls! They screamed secrets, painted in haunting crimson, help us twisted into grotesque shapes. Tom swallowed hard, trying to rationalize the terror creeping into his bones. Entranced, he blinked and they were gone. Just the empty mall staring back at him. He pushed on, his flashlight revealing a pickup area for the old arcade, peeling paint flaking away like memories. Anxiety hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Weeks passed, and shadows darted where they shouldn't. He stumbled upon a forgotten passage behind a broken display case. Dark storage filled his vision, choking him with dust and rot. Old newspaper clippings strewn about told twisted stories of a vanished family. The words whispered betrayal, their meanings writhing around in his mind. His heart raced. What hidden crimes bound to this cursed place? Panic surged when a police officer arrived, familiar yet unnervingly menacing. Just doing my rounds, he explained, but something felt off. Each encounter turned darker, laced with thinly veiled threats. You're in areas you shouldn't be, he murmured, smile stretching across a face that felt more like a mask. Cold dread wrapped around Tom's throat, tightening with each word. Then, one night, he caught a glimpse of his daughters through a cracked mirror. They smiled back at him, translucent and unearthly, giggles spilling like broken glass into the oppressive silence. Until they vanished into shadows, leaving him frozen in raw fear. Was this place safe for them? Or was the darkness here far worse than what he could ever understand? As music drifted through the emptiness, a haunting children's tune crept into his mind, clawing at his sanity. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, heart pounding like thunder. He turned, breath catching. Something moved, just out of sight. What lay waiting for him in the dark? A truth tangled with the shadows, ready to pounce, could change everything in a heartbeat. Tom's heart thundered as he turned, the flashlight beam slicing through the oppressive darkness. There it was again, that soft rustling sound, like leaves skittering across pavement. But this was not the time for a wandering rodent. Sweat pooled in his palms, fingers trembling around the flashlight. He took a half step backward, but his legs remained rooted to the ground. The flickering lights above buzzed in a staccato rhythm, casting eerie shadows that clawed at the edges of his vision. He swiveled back to the cracked mirror, empty now. A cold knot curled tighter in his gut. That brief flash of his daughters had felt so real, yet he now felt as if he was chasing phantoms. Was he losing his mind? With every instinct screaming at him to leave, he pressed on, deeper into the mall's labyrinth. The child's laughter echoed off the walls, a teasing sound that lured him further. "What if they need me?" he muttered under his breath, the words tasting like lead. The stores loomed like prisons around him. He could swear he felt eyes tracking his every step. Distant whispers trailed behind him, sharpening his senses. It was maddening. He wanted to shout, to demand what was happening, but he couldn't find his voice. Rounding the corner again, he stumbled into the old toy store. The shelves stood empty, yet remnants of forgotten days lay scattered: battered stuffed animals, broken dolls, once bright wrapping paper dusted in neglect. There, at the center of the store, on a dusty display, lay a wooden music box, creaky and forlorn. It beckoned him like a siren-esque call, the enticing rhythm of a familiar tune drifting through the air. He approached cautiously. Something felt off about this box. It was as if it pulsed with energy. Tom reached out, hesitating as the music swelled. Just as he touched the lid, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing his flashlight. Darkness swallowed him whole. Panic struck hard as he fumbled for the switch. Heart racing, he scrambled backward, feeling for the edge of the nearby shelf. A whisper floated into his ear, a chilling warning. "Help us!" Shivers cascaded down his spine. The music box continued to play, the soft notes twisting into something sinister. "No, leave it," he muttered, but his hand pulsed with a strange urge, wanting to lift the lid despite every instinct to flee. With a rush of adrenaline, he darted toward the entrance. The shadows surged, filling the toy store as if attempting to claw him back. Just as he reached for the door handle, the voice cried out again, this time louder, more desperate. "Daddy!" He froze. His breath hitched. The voice had been his daughter's, unmistakable amidst the chaos. Before he could comprehend what was happening, the lights flickered back on, and the shadows receded. The room was quiet again, but the atmosphere was thick with menace. It felt like an unseen weight pressing down on him. Heart racing, Tom spun around, ready to flee, but the sudden loud crash of something falling behind him made him jump. He turned to see the music box, now lying on the floor, its lid flung open. The melody had stopped. In the silence that followed, he felt the air shift, and then he saw them, two small figures, their eyes glistening just for a moment, reflection glinting off ghostly white faces before they dissolved like mist. Tom's mind reeled. What just happened? He whispered. He stumbled out of the toy store, his heart pounding with dread. What connection lay between this haunting place and his daughters? Could he really keep them safe from whatever lurked here? Tom steeled himself, determination igniting the edges of his fear. He needed to uncover the truth. But as he stepped into the hallway, the whispers returned, wrapping around him like a noose. "Join us, help us!" What awaited him in the dark was undeniable, a truth so chilling he felt it might consume him whole. Could he resist the longing to find out? Tom's breath quickened as shadows danced along the walls of the corridor. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a frenzied wind. "Help us!" they dripped with sorrow, pulling him deeper into the chilling maw of the mall's gloom. He shook his head, trying to dispel the creeping dread. Focus. He needed to find his girls. His footsteps echoed unnaturally, each sound bouncing off the cracked walls, amplifying the haunting silence that followed. Would they be okay? He felt a gnawing pit in his stomach. Determination pushed him forward, yet curiosity gnawed at his mind. What were those figures? Were they real? And where did they lead? An ice-cold shiver crawled down his spine as he stumbled to the food court. The scent of long-expired fries and stale soda hung heavy in the air, as if the ghost of the place itself choked on forgotten meals. Tables toppled and chairs askew gave the illusion of a hasty evacuation. Tom stepped cautiously, his flashlight flickering, each pulse echoing like a heartbeat. The buzzing overhead lights felt like a mockery of safety. He moved towards the service corridor, a black void that promised answers or his undoing. Glancing around, he noticed an old security monitor blinking sporadically, displaying faint images of the mall as it once was, filled with life. But now patchy video showed only the abandoned food wrappers swirling through the darkness. And then he heard it. A giggle high-pitched and clear. Frozen in his tracks, he squinted into the darkened corridor. Was it his imagination? No. It rang out again, almost mocking him from the depths. He clenched the flashlight tighter and ventured toward the source, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. Suddenly, the air grew thick with tension as he approached a dimly lit corner. There, under the flickering light, sat a single, shattered doll, its painted face smeared and chipped. The giggles stopped. It felt like the walls themselves leaned closer, straining to listen. He reached down to pick up the doll, fingers brushing against its brittle dress. "Don't!" a voice squealed. Tom snatched his hand back, eyes wide and frantic. "Who's there?" Panic laced his voice and echoed back to him, swallowed by the silence. Another apparition flashed across the screen of the security monitor, a shadow darting in a way that felt hauntingly familiar. He leaned closer. It looked like his daughters, playing back in a time before this nightmare had overtaken them. "Help us," the voice hissed again, dripping with anguish. That voice, it was different this time. Not a plea but a cry that had an edge of desperation. The darkness shifted, warping before him. Tom felt the doll burn in his palm, warmth radiating against the cold reality around him. Without thinking, he shoved the doll into his backpack, the act igniting a flicker of hope. "I need to find you," he whispered. The atmosphere stifled him, squeezing around his chest. He darted back to the corridor but stopped short, a figure standing at the far end. Tall and shrouded in darkness, a presence he couldn't quite make out. It felt alive, watching him with a predatory hunger. The whispers became a chorus, shrill and panicked. "Daddy!" The familiar voice echoed once more, clear this time, but wrapped in an unbearable tension. Could he reach her? Could he break through this nightmare? As he stood frozen, feeling the heat of the entity's gaze, the song of the music box began to play again. This time, it wasn't sweet. It twisted into horrifying notes that seemed to coil around him, constricting, drawing him in. He turned to run, but the air thickened, and the shadows grew claws, reaching out with a terrifying grasp. The walls seemed to shake with laughter that turned his stomach. "Join us!" Tom slammed into the door, his heart racing, terrified of what might await him beyond. The final sound he heard was an echoing crack as darkness swallowed the light, and he stumbled into an abyss. What horrors lingered just out of sight? Could he unravel the truth of this haunted place before it finally consumed him? Tom landed hard on the ground, the impact smothered by thick dust. It was darker than the endless shadows above, a void that clawed at his senses. Panic clawed at his throat. He blinked rapidly, trying to adjust, but the darkness loomed, swallowing him whole. He pushed to his feet, heart roaring like an engine. The familiar sounds of the mall were replaced by a deafening silence, one that felt alive. In the stillness, the whispers shifted, their tone sharpening like blades. "Find us!" The urgency in those voices made his skin crawl. Tom hesitated, then fumbled with his flashlight, praying it would flicker back to life. Its beam sputtered, revealing walls coated in grime and creepy shadows that seemed to twitch with every heartbeat. He turned slowly, hoping for a glimmer of familiarity in this confounding place. Above him, a flickering light buzzed ominously, casting ghostly shapes. Suddenly, the whispers transformed into laughter, soft and taunting. The giggles echoed, turning into a chorus of sweet, childlike sounds, yet underneath, there was a sickening edge. "Daddy!" came a sing-song voice from the darkness, and every hair on his body stood on end. "Emmy? Kayla?" he called, his voice scarcely a whisper. The names echoed back, stretched thin, distorted by the void. He clenched his fists tighter, dread pooling in his stomach. He took a cautious step forward, his breath quickening. The laughter faded, replaced by an almost tangible tension that weighed heavily in the air. Then, just ahead, he spotted movement, a flicker of a shadow shifting behind a corner. Adrenaline surged through him, legs propelled by fear and hope. Tom rushed forward, sliding around the corner, ready to scold whoever he might find. Yet the space was empty, nothing but dust motes dancing in the dull light. His heart sank. Had he imagined it? The laughter returned, a deafening echo. "Help us," they pleaded again, more insistent. It was as if the words seeped from the very walls, creeping under his skin. Desperation choked him. He had to find them, had to break whatever hold this darkness had over them. He gripped the doll in his bag, willing it to guide him. "Where are you?" he barked into the abyss. To his right, a door creaked open, slowly, like an invitation soaked in dread. He hesitated. Something instinctual warned him, but he felt the tug of hope coaxing him forward. With a deep breath, he crossed the threshold. The room was a grotesque parody of childhood, a twisted playground, filled with rusting slides and broken swings. In the center lay a circle of dusty dolls, their painted faces frozen in terror, a whispering echo of the lost souls trapped within. "Daddy!" The voice rang out again, stronger, a plea pinched with fear. It drew him deeper into the horrors that surrounded him. Suddenly, a distorted figure emerged from behind the swings, tall and skeletal, a mockery of the warmth he craved. The grinning face flickered in and out of focus, and for a moment, Tom's blood froze in his veins. "Time to join it," rasped, the voice a cacophony of familiar tones. He turned to flee, panic surging through him as the twisted laughter crescendoed. The dolls swung their heads, their eyes tracking him. "Daddy!" The cry was desperate now, raw with urgency, ripping through the laughter. As Tom stumbled back, he could feel the walls closing in, darkness pressing against him. He snapped his head around, scanning the room for escape. The door had vanished. Trapped. The laughter morphed into a sick, rippling sound, a siren song that beckoned him onward into the dark. "Don't leave us," they mingled with the laughter, urging him back into the shadows that yearned to claim him. Could he find his daughters within the labyrinth of horrors, or was he fated to join their wails forever? The entity loomed closer, and he felt its breath, cold and stale, stirring the hairs on his neck. What awaited him in the dark? Would he find a way to break the curse, or would the echoes of the lost ensnare him too? Tom's heart raced as he backed against the wall, the breath of the twisted figure ghosting across his skin. Silence enveloped him, sudden, complete, like a heavy blanket suffocating his terror. He couldn't tell if the entity had stepped closer or if it simply loomed in the periphery of his vision, a predator savoring its prey. "Daddy!" it called again, but this time the voice fractured, blending the innocent plea with sinister undertones. The doll's eyes glimmered with something dark, an addictive hunger that dripped from their cracked lips. He swiped the flashlight towards the figure, praying for light and an escape, but its beam flickered and dimmed, each pulse of fading light spinning shadows more menacing around him. Every flick brought back memories of his daughters, their laughter and their smiles, now twisted into grotesque echoes. "No! I will find you!" he shouted, driving his voice through the oppressive silence like a battering ram. The figure tilted its head, mockingly amused, revealing a maw filled with teeth too sharp and too numerous. "Join us," it crooned, as if drawing from the voices of his daughters, weaving them into the fabric of its terrible existence. Against his instincts, Tom surged forward, desperation overriding caution. "I'm coming. I won't leave you." With a sudden turn, he lunged through the labyrinth of rusting playground equipment. "Come play with us," they whispered in unison. The sound rippled through the air like a dark spell, clinging to him, urging him to stay. Shadows danced around him, and he felt their pull as if they sought to drag him down into their depths. He pushed through, nearly stumbling over a dilapidated swing. It creaked underfoot, the taunting laughter peaking all around him. He charged through the surreal nightmare, trying to breathe, to anchor himself in the real world. The stench of decay filled his nostrils, mingling with something sweet and far too inviting. Head pounding, Tom forced his feet to keep moving. "Please, just tell me where you are." His voice echoed harshly, swallowed by the suffocating darkness. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a wall, not a wall made of wood or plaster, but a mass of tangled toys, spirit-trapped remnants of the children that once played here. Tiny hands pressed against the plastic surfaces, longing for escape. His skin prickled, and his heart thudded in his chest like a drum signaling his doom. Tom reached into his bag for the doll, gripping it tightly, as if it might serve as a talisman against the horror he faced. Its glassy eyes seemed to glint meaningfully, as if alive. There had to be a way. "I will find you. I swear." The laughter returned, now harsh and mocking, tinged with pain. "You will never find them. They are ours." Before he could respond, the ground beneath him trembled, the entire room shuddering with a mind of its own. The skeletal entity lunged toward him, just as flickering lights swept across the barren space. Tom's flashlight flared back to life, illuminating the twisted grin of the creature, but momentarily blinding him to what lay beyond. Shadows writhed and twisted at the edges of his vision, and then everything fell silent once more. Heart racing, he couldn't shake the feeling that something vital had shifted. In that silence, he remembered the stories he heard as a child, warnings of spirits needing playmates. Reluctance seeped into him. Was he to become another doll in this cursed place, bound by innocence lost? As the twisted laughter echoed again, now singing nursery rhymes warped into something unrecognizable, Tom felt the weight of their desperation. He took a shaky step forward. "Let them go!" he yelled, his voice ricocheting off the walls. But the laughter only grew stronger, a chaotic cacophony of childish joy mixed with terror. Suddenly, the distorted face contorted in fury. It recoiled as if struck, mouth opening in a silent scream. The moment hung thick in the air just before a deep rumble split the silence. The ground shuddered again, and cracks began to form around him, as if the entire playground was tearing apart. Screams erupted from somewhere deep within. "Daddy!" The voice was his daughter's now, rising above the laughter, ringing with true urgency tinged with panic. He didn't have much time. The entity faltered, scrambling to regain control, desperation seeping into its twisted features. Tom's instincts kicked in. He had to escape. As he sprinted toward the newly formed gap in the wall, the darkness roared back to life, chasing him with furious intent. Would he reach the light before the shadows consumed him? Or had he become just another part of this building nightmare? Tom plunged into the gap, his heart pounding, desperate to escape the gnashing teeth and haunting voices behind him. The moment he passed through, a searing chill washed over him, freezing him to his core. He stumbled into a bleak corridor, the air thick and suffocating, igniting the familiar sense of dread that clung like fog. Darkness wrapped around him like a cloak, but the echo of his daughter's cries pushed him forward. "You have to be brave," he whispered to himself, each step heavier than the last. The walls seemed to shift, painted in shadows that danced eerily just beyond the reach of his dimming flashlight. Sudden footsteps rang out, echoing ominously. Every nerve in his body screamed for him to turn back, yet he pressed on. "Where are you?" he shouted, hoping against hope for a reply. But all that greeted him was the whispering hiss of shadows, teasing his sanity, weaving tales of despair. Tom's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of life, a flicker of light, a shadow that didn't belong. He turned a corner abruptly, and the ground beneath him seemed to slither. He caught a glimpse of beloved faces peeking through a thin veil of mist. Their hopeful expressions twisted into pained perspectives, reaching out as if pleading for rescue. "Daddy, please." He staggered backwards, horror gripping him. The figures faded, replaced by the monster's voice, distorted and dripping with malice. "They are mine now." The walls quaked as if echoing the creature's threat, shaking Tom's resolve even more. He stumbled through a doorway, slamming it shut behind him. The room was small, cluttered with broken toys and remnants of a once vibrant nursery, now draped in despair. Faded drawings decorated the walls, children's smiles forever frozen in time, their bright colors now dull and lifeless. Jagged pieces of broken furniture sprawled across the floor, each one a reminder of innocence stripped away. Tom panted, his lungs burning. "Think," he urged himself. He scanned the room, trying to retain focus. Among the debris lay a forgotten toy box. Driven by instinct, he yanked it open. Inside was a jumbled mess of stuffed animals, their glassy eyes reflecting the little light that remained. But one particular bear stood out, its plush coat stained, one eye missing, yet somehow exuding a warmth that felt alive. Grabbing the bear, he felt a jolt of energy course through him. Images flashed in his mind: laughter, swirling leaves, the sound of tiny footsteps running through the autumn haze. It sparked something inside, a glimmer of hope amidst the overwhelming dread. But just as he clutched the bear tighter, the door rattled violently, the monster outside unleashing a torrent of rage. "You can't hide from me. They belong to me." The voice clawed at his mind, threatening to rip apart his sanity. "Let them go!" Tom shouted back, adrenaline fueling his defiance. "You can't take them." The entity laughed, a sound twisted and desperate. "It's too late." The structure trembled, glowing cracks spreading across the walls as anguish echoed from the depths of the shadows, merging into an uproar of tortured wails. Tom stumbled back, just as the bear came alive, vibrating against his chest like a beating heart. His grip tightened, guiding him like a compass. "To the light," he murmured, recalling the flickering beacon just beyond the chaos. Dark footsteps resonated ever closer. He needed to act, to escape. Racing toward the window at the far end of the room, he felt the oppressive darkness chasing him, more than just shadows, but a conscious entity intent on dragging him under. With one push, he shattered the glass, shards raining down like fragile confessions. He leaped into the gaping void outside as the view shifted, endless nothingness welcoming him in a relentless embrace. As the darkness snatched at his heels, he braced for impact. But he landed not on soft ground, but a cold, slick surface, the floor of a darkened hallway, bare of the haunting memories he had just escaped, or had he? Voices echoed along the hall, an unsettling harmony that twisted his heart. "Daddy! We're here!" The chilling familiarity clawed at him, sending icy fingers racing up his spine. Reeling in shock, Tom couldn't tell if he was further from safety, or closer to an even greater horror. The shadows regrouped, shifting along the walls with intent. What awaited Tom around the corner? Another dance with despair, or an encounter with the truth? Tom's heart raced. The echoes of his daughter's voices pulsed through the air like a heartbeat, drawing him into the darkness ahead. With each cautious step, he ventured deeper down the corridor, his flashlight beam pushing back the shadows that swarmed hungrily around him. Yet, the light felt weak, flickering as if unsure it could hold the darkness at bay. The walls closed in, suffocatingly tight. He pressed forward, desperation gnawing at his sanity. "Stay close, I'm coming," he yelled, his voice trembling. But the responses melted into a cacophony, laughter mingled with cries. Were they mocking him, or calling for help? Suddenly, the corridor shifted, the ground rippling beneath him, an unholy quagmire. The familiar words seemed to weave through the air: "Daddy, it's dark and cold." The shadows transformed into grotesque images, twisting his children's faces into masks of fear and desperation. "No!" Tom shouted, stumbling back. He couldn't look at them like this. The haunting specters faded, their last wails echoing in his ears as the sinister laughter filled the space, pulsating with malignant pleasure. "You can't resist. They are mine." The voice boomed, skeletal fingers reaching for him from the darkness. The pulsation of rage drove Tom to run. Every sprint was a battle against the invisible force clawing at him, eager to drag him under. Another door loomed ahead, and he slammed against it, desperation fueling his conviction. As he burst through, he found himself in a larger room, an endless expanse that felt even more oppressive. Flickering lights illuminated a series of long tables, each stacked high with toys. Dolls with one eye, stuffed animals with torn seams stared at him, their painted faces twisted in agony. The air thickened with a bitter scent, like old dust and sorrow, and disarray suffocated the corners. In an unsettling stillness, he moved deeper, breathless, then froze. The white tiles beneath him gleamed unnaturally, speckled with dark stains. He glanced around, hearing faint whispers, weaving in and out of his consciousness. "Help us please!" All at once, the temperature dropped, his breath visible in the cold air. He recalled the warmth from the bear. Where was it now? It must be here somewhere. His eyes darted to every corner when a shadow darted past him, quick and sinuous. Heart in his throat, he followed it, a primal urge pulling him onward. But with every step, the voices grew louder, wrapping around him a chorus of despair, threads of broken dreams tangled within the ominous sound. He rounded a corner, and the creature emerged, a figure clad in a shroud of darkness, limbs distorted beyond human comprehension. Gray, pulsing flesh glimmered in the intermittent light, eyes like fiery coals boring into Tom's very soul. "You seek them?" The voice rasped, dripping with malice. "How noble! But you can't save them without sacrificing something of your own." Tom's grip on reality slipped. This was not just a place of loss, it thrived on fear, feeding the malevolence that surged around him. "What do you want from me?" he gasped, trapped in the creature's glare. It grinned, revealing fanged teeth like jagged blades. "A choice, Tom. Your daughters, or your spirit, but you won't leave them behind." Suddenly, the walls surged, shadows danced wildly as if illuminated by a fire inside. Despair flooded in, pushing against him from every side, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. The creature lunged, solving the riddle of his moral dilemma in seconds. Tom felt his insides twist. It wanted him to break, to give in to everything he feared. "No, I won't," he screamed, conviction igniting within him. He stepped back, and in that heartbeat, a glimmer of light shot through the darkness. "Let them go." The words burst from his lips, raw and primal, filled with a parent's fury. But as he pressed forward, the creature leered, shadows pooling at its feet, "Your defiance will cost." Thud. The walls quaked violently, awakening something ancient and vile. Tom could feel it. This was a reckoning. He charged for the glowing light, his daughter's cries echoing in his ears. But as he neared, the light flickered and dimmed, revealing figures trapped within a choice fraught with terror approached. Would he grasp the light of hope or be consumed by the darkness once more? What truth lay beyond the blinding glare, just within reach? Tom lunged toward the light, heart pounding as the shadows roared behind him, desperate for his retreat. The pulse of the illumination stuttered, casting erratic shadows that danced like frantic echoes of twilight. He could hear the whispers grow into a crescendo of urgency, "Daddy, please." Fear clawed at his throat, tightening like a noose. He stretched out his hand, fingertips brushing against the cool, shimmering surface of the light. Instantly, it pooled around him, warmth wrapping around his body, a momentary reprieve from the cold darkness. But then the creature's growl surged, primal and anguished, slicing through the air like shattered glass. "You think you can save them?" Tom's resolve quaked. "I will. I have to," he shouted, his own voice trembling with desperation. The light flickered again, and he could almost see their faces, pale and etched with terror, his daughters trapped in an eternal embrace with the dark. "Hope is a heavy burden to bear," the creature snarled, its voice slithering through his mind. "You will pay dearly." Before Tom could respond, the walls became fluid, surging with swirling darkness. The pulse of the light dimmed as the shadows filled the room, entwining and pinching tight. Panic ignited within him, he pushed through, striving to break free from the smothering mist. The whispers turned shrill, echoing memories of laughter and tender moments twisted into terrible screams. "Help us! No! I won't abandon you!" Tom screamed, breaking into a frantic sprint. His feet slipped on the slick tiles, but the thought of his daughters drove him onward. The creature surged forward, a grotesque silhouette now fully formed, blocking his path. "You can't escape your fate, Tom. You're already lost." With each heartbeat, the air thickened, carrying with it a rancid scent, burnt and sour. The room trembled, shadows swirling as if alive. Tom needed to act, and quickly. He glanced around, spotting a lattice of old toys scattered on a nearby table, remnants of innocence twisted into a hellish display. Desperation clawed at him. "What if I give it all?" he yelled. "What if I offer you everything?" The creature paused, intrigued. "Everything? You think yourself generous? You don't even know the weight of such a sacrifice." The light pulsed dangerously, bouncing off the walls, casting agonizing reflections of ghostly figures in torment. "I know your demands," Tom urged, fear woven in every word. "Show me." An unsettling silence enveloped them, the shadows retreating as if anticipating his decision. The creature's eyes glimmered, a reflection of malice shrouded in the promise of salvation. "Then make a choice. It is time to decide what you're willing to lose." Suddenly, from within the depths of the shadows came the echoes of laughter, a sickening sound layered with despair. Tom felt their presence creeping closer, frayed edges of memories surfacing, entwined with dread. "You'll lose your mind, your heart, or perhaps your very soul," the creature crooned. Tom staggered. "No. I won't lose anything. I'll fight." But in that moment of brave defiance, shadows converged, and he was overwhelmed. The cold gnawed at him, clasping around his limbs like chains. He could feel something large slinking closer, enveloping him in its malignant embrace. The final flickers of light shrouded the room, and suddenly, there was a brilliant flash. All around him was swirling darkness and brightness, as if time had ripped and sewn back together with horrors best left unseen. When clarity returned, he stood in a familiar, sunlit park. But the joy was tainted. He turned to find figures playing nearby, only to see their faces were not his daughters. Confusion spiraled within him. "What is this?" he gasped, dread blooming in his heart. "Tom, they are safe now," the creature hissed from behind, its voice slithering back into his ear. "But the price is yet to be paid." He turned slowly, dread settling in his gut like a stone. Light and shadow trembled together, revealing a doorway behind him that he hadn't seen before. "What lies in there?" His voice trembled. "Your true choice," it snickered. Tom stood, frozen, the weight of his decisions crashing down like waves of grief and fear. What awaited him on the other side of that door? Would he muster the strength to confront what lurked unseen, or would he be dragged back into the abyss he had momentarily escaped? A heartbeat passed, and he stepped closer, feeling the weight of fate press against him like a heavy shroud. But as he reached for the handle, the creature's laughter echoed once more, twisted and sadistic. "This is only the beginning." Tom's hand trembled as it hovered over the door handle. The air around him felt charged, electric, vibrating with anticipation. Each beat of his heart echoed in his ears, mixing with the creature's mocking laughter that slithered under his skin like oil. "What if I don't want to open it?" he muttered, half to himself, half to the thing that loomed behind him. The darkness shifted, phasing in and out, whispering promises of dread and despair. "You already opened the door, Tom. This is merely the next step." Clenching his jaw, he gripped the handle. Cold metal sent shivers up his arm. Memories spun in his mind, laughter, giggles, and the carefree days spent chasing after his daughters. Every fleeting moment stung with regret. How could he have let fear drive him away from them? The door creaked as he turned the handle, ominously slow, as if resisting his will. He braced himself and pushed. The world beyond was a shadowy corridor, lined with flickering fluorescent lights that hummed menacingly. The scent of mildew permeated the air, mixing with an acrid tang that made his stomach churn. He stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind him, muffling the world he had known. "Where are you taking me?" he called, his voice wavering in the thickening gloom. No answer came, just the relentless thrum of the lights above him. There was a choice ahead. He could follow the narrow corridor, each step echoing with a dissonant rhythm, or he could turn back. But turn back to what? The shadows? The laughter? He took another step forward, despair drawing him deeper. Figures flickered at the edges of his vision, children running, laughing, then whirling into disjointed shapes, faces twisting in fear, their cries mingling with the growls of the unseen. "Tom! Help us! Hang on! I'm coming!" he shouted, heart racing, echoing in the claustrophobic space. The air thickened with dread, the corridor narrowing as if it were breathing, contracting, seeking to snuff out his remaining hope. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently. In their sporadic flare, Tom caught glimpses of walls smeared with dark stains that looked obscenely like hands reaching out. Panic surged within him. No! Not now! But the shadows pressed in, swirling around him. The whispers transformed, spewing a cacophony of clashing voices, pleas, taunts, and dreadful laughter merging into a nightmarish symphony. "You think you can save them?" An all-too-familiar voice echoed through the spaces between breaths, the creature now looming large in his mind. "But cry all you like, you'll never escape your fate." Tom clenched his fists, drawing from the last threads of defiance. "You don't know me. I will save them." The hallway shifted again, the shadows pulling apart like dark curtains. In the center stood a door, even more imposing than the last. Its surface was carved with grotesque faces, frozen in eternal horror. The creature's voice danced in his ear, seductive, promising dark rewards for acceptance. "Choose wisely, Tom. Once you enter, what is lost may never return." He hesitated. Could he bear to step into yet another uncertainty? With a quick intake of air, Tom threw caution to the wind. He reached for the knob, every instinct yanking him back. The door rattled in defiance, as if it sensed his trepidation. But he refused to falter. Swallowing a scream of despair, he pushed the door open. Light poured out, blindingly bright. He was engulfed. When vision cleared, he stood in a room far removed from the darkness he had just escaped. But something was wrong. It felt hollow, cold, as if memories had been siphoned out, leaving only an emptiness that resonated with sorrow. A soft rustling caught his attention. He turned, heart pounding. There, in the far corner, stood two figures, shadows clinging to them like a second skin, their faces obscured. "Daddy," one whispered, barely audible. And then he froze at the growing realization, those were his daughters, but they were different. Hollow eyes stared back, devoid of the spark he once knew. "What has happened to you?" he gasped, tears threatening to spill. The shadows twisted, reshaping the room around him, laughter bubbling up into creature-like shrieks. The bright light dimmed ominously, and the creature's laughter echoed once more. "What did you choose, Tom?" Tom staggered back, horror sweeping through him. The answer was clear: the price had been paid, and he hadn't even known it. The doorway behind him vanished, and he felt himself trapped. Then came a whisper that made the blood freeze in his veins. "Now you are one of us." The darkness closed in, and he realized there was no escape. But was there still someone to save? "Find me." The distant call echoed, and as hope trickled back into Tom's heart, dread tightened around it like a vice. He stood at the precipice of something far more sinister. With fear coursing through him, he took a tentative step forward into the unknown. What awaited him in that darkened space? Would he retrieve the light, or would he be consumed by it? Tom's heart raced as he took cautious steps forward, the memories of his daughters flickering behind the dull shadows. "I'll save you," he shouted, his voice trembling, but it sounded like a whisper lost in a storm. The figures before him twisted and shifted, sorrow morphing their once cherubic features into a haunting display of longing and anguish. "No," he gasped, reality slamming into him like a freight train. The creature smirked, watching, waiting for him to grasp the enormity of his choices. "You face the consequences of your journey, Tom. You sought to find them, but the price? It's steep." "No. I didn't ask for this," he yelled, desperation clawing at his throat. But he understood, begrudgingly. This was the cost of shadow realms, of haunted places playing tricks with light and hope. The creature surged forward, a mass of swirling darkness, its voice dripping with malice. "You will belong to me now as they do." Each word echoed like a thunder cloud ready to burst. Tom turned, searching for an escape, but the grip of shadows tightened around him, looming ominously. What could he do? Was he to join their fate, forever bound in this life? "Daddy," came a voice, clearer now, slicing through the noise, pulling at his heart. He blinked and saw them, his daughters, still lost, still frightened. Their little hands extended towards him, faces clouded with fear. "Help us." Torn between dread and hope, he moved instinctively, racing toward them. "Hold on. Just hold on," he called, pushing against the shadows that clawed at his limbs. As he reached out, the atmosphere changed. Light bathed over him, momentarily brightening the cursed room. He could see them, tangible and fighting against something that air could not hold. But as quickly as the brightness appeared, it dimmed, pulling him back into despair. "No. I won't give in." His voice surged with newfound strength. The creature shrieked, a sound that rattled the very essence of the place around him. But it shrank back momentarily, compelled by Tom's desperation, not fear. "Emmy! Kayla!" he screamed, reaching out further. His fingers grazed theirs, a pulse of warmth spreading through the cold air. As their tiny hands clasped his, the bond ignited like an electric shock. In that moment, he felt their strength swirling inside him, light permeating through shadows, a rush of love and determination that fought against the darkness surrounding them. "Let them go," he cried, his voice roaring with the force of a tempest. The entity howled, the walls trembling with heated fury. "You dare defy me?" But Tom didn't waver. "They are mine," he shouted back, pulling the warmth around him. The shadows writhed, screaming as light burst forth from his chest, cascading around him in a radiant explosion. The energy thrummed like a living heartbeat, illuminating every inch of the grotesque room. Caught off guard, the creature faltered, shadows retreating as Tom stepped deeper into the light. "You can't take them. They'll be free." The light welled violently, filling the air with warmth, golden and unyielding. The warmth flowed through his daughters, their eyes brightening as laughter wove back into their voices. "Daddy!" they cheered, the sound breaking through the sinister noise. Tom felt the chaos shift, shadows pushing back as they gave way. With every ounce of love, he concentrated on them, on their spirits intertwining with him, and the brightness exploded, shattering the darkness. As the light engulfed all, they burst forth, stepping out of shadows, into a brilliant realm of color and warmth. Still holding their hands, Tom breathed in freedom for the first time. Suddenly, the dark realm trembled, erupting into shrill wails before collapsing into stardust, scattering the echoes of despair. They were free. Pulling his girls close, tears streamed down his face. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, suffocated by relief, as warmth wrapped around them like a soft blanket. "We're here, Daddy," they answered, their smiles radiant as dawn. "We're safe." But Tom cast a wary glance over his shoulder, cautiously gauging the remnants of the darkness that receded into the atmosphere. A town bathed in light surrounded them. The mall stood tall in the distance, but it shimmered now the shadows gone. Will it come back? He asked softly, an edge of uncertainty lingering. Kayla shook her head. Not if we don't let it. And with that simple promise, a peace returned to Tom's heart. Together, they walked toward the warmth of daylight, hand in hand. It felt softer, lulling, a moment filled with possibilities. No shadows remained to haunt him. As they stepped into the golden sunlight, laughter poured from Tom, buoyed by their presence. Deep down, he knew darkness would always exist but love would light the path through. And as the echoes of the past faded into whispers, a new journey began, one filled with hope. This was not the end, it was a bright beginning. Now, if you made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Share your thoughts, we want to hear them. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this resolution. This is the moment to show your support.